There we go, guys. It is 8 o'clock. It is Tuesday, the first day of spring, March 19th. And it's time for DMR Technet TV. It's our second episode. And tonight we are talking about WPSD, or your hotspot. So with that, let's turn it over to Rick and to Brad, who's going to run this. If you guys have questions, hold on. We'll get to those afterwards. But Rick, take it away.
Okay. Hopefully I can slow down enough where everybody can understand what's going on. I apologize. I've got a laptop and a large monitor that I'm going back and forth between, and we were having fun sharing before, so this could be interesting. What I wanted to cover is what WPSD is, and that also encompasses Pi-Star. Pi-Star is and WPSD is the software that runs on your single board computer, which happens to be a Pi-Star or a Raspberry Pi, either 002 or 2, 3, 4, 5. Well, it's not 5 yet, not on 5 yet. And that talks to your modem, your MMDVM or OpenSpot or ZoomSpot or Bridgecom, which talks to your radio. So it's the go-between software. A lot of people call it a dashboard. Please don't. It's not. The dashboard is part of it, but it's not a dashboard. When I started out on Pi-Star, I cut my teeth on that. Had some problem. Had fun with it, but had it working, and it worked. But then Dana and company mentioned WPSD, and I started investigating that. And there are several advantages to WPSD. And the first is Chip W0CHP rewrote. He took Pi-Star code, rewrote most of it or lots of it into, and I think he's running Python. He wrote it in Python. Correct me if I'm wrong. And it does several more things. It supports additional digital modes. It supports M17, DMR, D-Star, Yaesu Fusion, P25, NXDN, and POC, SAG, whatever that is. I don't even know.
And yeah, we were kind of chatting about that. POCSAG.
POCSAG is paging.
I don't know. Anyhow, I don't think that's super important right now. But it runs on several boards. The Raspberry Pi Zero, which is not recommended. With running in Python, it requires some more resources. It will run on a Raspberry Pi 02W. And the W just means it has Wi-Fi. So the 02 works reasonably well. Then it works better with models 2, 3, and 4. Chip is working on the Raspberry Pi 5. He has it close to being ready. So at some point in the near future, I think that will be supported. The MMDVM board I have requires a little soldering and moving components. Removing a component to make it work with a 5. It also worked with an Orange Pi Zero, a Nano Pi Zero, the Zoom Spot. There's several Zoom Spots. The Bridgecom SkyBridge Plus and the Max also are supported. So there's lots of different hotspots supported. Okay, it supports MMDVM boards. And there's different flavors of MMDVM boards. And those also have a set of firmware. And if we get later here down the road, on the documentation, it tells you how to update the firmware on that MMDVM. So that's something Pi-Star doesn't do. So it talks about updating those boards. TV Megas, it works on those Lone Star boards, and there's several odd versions and repeater builder M30 or STM32 DVM boards it supports. So that's a lot of features. It also supports the multiple crossover modes like YSF to DMR, DMR to YSF, which I think Pi-Star did too, but it does go to DMR to NXDN, and we'll look at those later as we look at the dashboard or the software itself. Another great feature of this thing is it builds nightly. Most reasonably well supported software does nightly builds before they test, but they're on a release cycle usually. So they release every so often, they'll release a different point, 1, 2, 3, 4 version. WPSD is a little different. If you leave your hotspot on overnight, it will automatically update to the daily build that day. Brad pointed out earlier that they do test these things. So it is tested code. It's not just thrown together a build and put it out there. They do test it. So that's one, for me, that's one of, a new feature comes out, it's tested, it comes out that night. You don't have to worry about adding it or rebuilding re-imaging your hotspot. Disadvantage of WPSD is it takes a little more horsepower to run. It needs a bigger computer. They recommend an ARM quad-core processor. A Pi 0W is a single-core ARM processor. The 2W is quad-core, along with the Raspberry Pi 2, 3, and 4, and 5. So that's kind of one of the disadvantages. It's one of the disadvantages. You need a little more power. I highly recommend that you go through and read the WPSD documentation, the manual. I put a link to the manual in the chat. If you don't see it or can't get to it, let me know. I will be glad to repost that link to the chat. But that manual is one of the better ones I've seen for software. It explains pretty much. There's only one detail I found that it didn't explain, and we'll cover that under Brad's presentation later, because that gets into once you install and try to do a few things with it. You download your disk image. There's a link in the documentation to download the disk image. And it's fairly easy to download. They go through several different versions of writing that disk image to a nano SD card, or a micro SD card, I'm sorry. And there's a Pi-Star imaging software that they recommend, and that's what I went through, and I highly recommend doing that. Unless you're familiar with the other ones, that could be a problem. So that's about my intro. How long did I take? 9 minutes. All right. Are there any questions? Does anybody have any questions at all at this point?
I'm looking, I don't see anything in the chat. Paul posted something really nice. POXAG is a telepaging system. He also said some DVM firmware is locked by the manufacturer, the maker, and is not upgradable. So I want to share that. Paul, thanks for putting that in the chat.
Yeah, and I believe they do mention that in the manual. So, but there's fairly detailed instructions on how to try it. And WPSD actually will update if it's not locked. So, Brad, you're on.
Oh, right. Let me share my screen.
I tried that.
And Brad helped me with, I've got 3 hotspots. One of them we couldn't get to work. Come to find out, it was the SD or the micro SD card was defective. Once I put a different one in, bingo, worked like a champ.
Micro SD cards are getting very cheap nowadays, so
All
I would
right.
recommend buying several.
So,
Yeah, those little guys. Oop, where am I at?
All right, Brad. So
right
I see the
here.
WPSD
There it is.
project.
That guy.
Yes. So there's two websites you're going to want to visit. If you don't already have the Raspberry Pi Imager, you can go to raspberrypi.com/software, and that will take you to the Raspberry Pi imaging downloader, which we're going to use here to when we download the WPSD information, we're going to get that there. And there's also a link to that Raspberry Pi tool here. I believe it is. Yep. So there's also a link on the w0chp.radio/WPSD page. So first thing you're going to do is download the appropriate disk image. It's going to take you down here. You're going to select the Raspberry Pi platform you are using to install this with.
So the first one, it says common generic hotspots. You got the Pi for the Pi 0, 0, 2 modules 2, 3, and 4 platforms. There's a Nano Pi one, Orange Pi, and then you got different ones like under the DV Mega and the Orange Pis or the Bridgecom. They get a bunch.
Yes. Yes. So I am using the Raspberry Pi Zero because this is my mobile hotspot that is getting redone. And that was me just putting my disk in that we're writing to. So we'll download the latest image.
You're not on the Nano, are you?
I
couldn't tell what you
am not.
clicked. I'm
I am
sorry.
not. I am on the WPSD RPI latest, which
Okay.
is this one right here.
Yep. Okay. Sorry, I'll keep my mouth.
Oh no, you're good. You're good. Double check. It's good to double check. And I'm going to put this in downloads so it's an easy place to come back and get it. So I've already installed the Raspberry Pi Imager. So what we're going to do, you're going to choose your OS. This will open up with this. Scroll all the way down to the bottom and select Use Custom. It's going to open up to this. Navigate to your Downloads folder. And then you'll want to select that WPSD RPI latest image. Choose your storage device. And then click Write. Hit yes. It's going to write the software to the drive. While that is running, that you're going to need to go to this Wi-Fi config file generator. You're going to want to put in your SSID or your network name and your password in here. Select your country. This is very important. Different countries have different Wi-Fi standards. So it's important for it to be on the standard of your country. Leave this as default right there and then just hit generate config. It's going to create this right here. Download the config file. We will also put this actually going to drop this on the deck. Nope.
Just remember wherever you do choose to download it at.
Yeah,
Documents.
or you will be doing it again.
Yes. So while we've got that, we're going to check this. And this is a slower process because it completely erases your disk and writes everything to it. So
Hey, Brad,
it
Brad,
is a
just,
process.
Brad, a question.
Yes.
For that Raspberry Pi imager, isn't there an advanced setting? I forget where it is now, that allows you to enter your Wi-Fi info.
So that does not work. You have to use this
Works
configuration
for me.
generator. I it worked for me, and then when we were doing it for Dana, it wasn't working,
Okay,
and we had to go back to this. So I recommend doing this because it doesn't work in every case.
yeah, that's what PiStar wants too. So in other words, it's a very technical computer term. It's flaky.
So no, it's actually the way the code is written. The code
Yeah,
is actually written to look for this for its Wi-Fi information.
Yeah.
So it comes down to the instruction of the code and how the code was created. Because I did look up why it had to be this way, and I think it was actually that's actually a really good thing that wasn't covered that I will cover real quick. So this WPSD dashboard, not dashboard, configuration is got a lot of support. If you're on Discord, they have a Discord server, and they are really good about getting back to you. Matter of fact, every time I've had a question within 15 minutes, either Chip W0CHP, who is one of the ones that's on this, or somebody else that's really closely related to this has answered me back with very solid information and really good support. So if you they do have a Discord server you can get on, and that does make it very helpful because they are very responsive on there. So that's another terrific thing about this is there's a lot of support for it.
Yeah, the question we had when we had some issues with mine, we posted it on Discord and Chip responded back like within 5 seconds or 5 minutes, I should say. So I thought that was really cool.
Yes, they are very responsive to you. So it's you'll get your answer whether you ask on the radio, you ask on the Discord server. Someone will answer your question on it because there's enough people who know about it that you'll get plenty of support about it. So while this is still writing this disk image, does anyone have any questions? No? None?
Quiet audience tonight. Hey, quick question for everyone. Who amongst you on your hotspots are using WPSD? Raise hands or
I am.
who is who's not using it? Who's not using it?
I'm not. All I see is is Greg's board.
Yeah, me too.
I don't see anything. I don't see anybody. What do I got to do here? Participants? Nope. I don't use it.
Not yet.
Dana, I can give you my call sign and my negative on using that. It's KD8PTE.
It was just informal on that one. Dan had a question. He's got his hand raised. Dan, you got to unmute yourself first.
Are you talking to me?
Dan had a question. And let me look here. Whoop. He disappeared. Yeah, one thing is that I learned with this thing, it takes a while to write. It was like 15,
Yes.
20 minutes.
Yes. So if you need some coffee, now's a good coffee break time.
Do you want to maybe start and go into the software itself while this is writing and show some of that
Yes.
instead
Yes.
of waiting?
Actually, I
Waste
can
your
actually
time.
show that config stuff.
Here we go.
Um, so that's good thing, good thinking there. So once you get it set up, you're gonna have to put in your username and password to get into the config. That's gonna
And
be Pi-Star and Raspberry as default. Pi-star for the username and Raspberry is the default username and password.
spell out
You
raspberry because a lot of people misspell that.
Raspberry.
Yeah, just make sure you put the P in there.
Oh, and the other thing I have fun going back and forth with is this thing is whatever you name. Like if you look up on the host name, it's he has Pi-Star up in there. I've got Pi-Star 2 on mine because I've got 2 hotspots, and you can use Pi-Star-2 or Pi-Star2.local sometimes to get to it with the browser, or sometimes I've got to use the IP address, so I can use either. So when things start up, look at the small screen and copy down the IP address so you have it.
Yes. Yes, that is a good point. Typically, whatever this is, you could just put that in your http:// whatever your host name is, which is typically Pi-Star. I just left mine as default. And that will typically take you to this if everything functioned properly in your startup process. Which, depending on your board, if you're on the Raspberry Pi Zero, that can take 15 to 20 minutes for that to configure it. Because, like Rick had mentioned earlier, it will work, but it's not recommended on that Pi Zero 2 2W, which is what I have it on. But it's my mobile hotspot, so that's why I have it on that. So when you set this up, it's going to ask you to put in like this information, then it's going to ask you to restart it, and it's going to give you all of your other information. This is your call sign, your DMR ID goes in here just like on your Pi-Star hotspot. Select your time zone. You do have to select your hat. It is the same selection as it would be on your Pi setup. So get a screen capture of this information or write this information down so you have this information so you know which radio modem to select. That is important information to capture off your old system. Of course, you want to select Slimplex unless you have a duplex hotspot, then you would select duplex, and that's a different setup. Mine's simplex, and that's what most of them are, so we're going over the simplex setup. I didn't change any of this information. I set my time zone. I prefer 24-hour format. Select your format you prefer. Select this and leave this enabled. You'll get a notification in your upper right-hand corner, right here where it has the version number that says there's an update available. And usually the next morning it goes away because, as Rick said, it does update overnight as long as you're connected. So this information here is not all, it doesn't have to be in there. This is my longitude, latitude.
Okay,
Your
Brad.
next,
Hey, Brad,
yes,
you gave me a great tip on how to find out your latitude and longitude. Go to Google
yes,
Maps, put your address in, and then right click on your address and it comes up with your latitude and longitude. Copy those numbers down. You can put them in there.
It's like if we want to know where the firefighters park disc golf course is, right click on that pin, right there's the longitude and latitude.
You can also look on QRZ.
Multiple ways to figure it out. Sure. Good to have options.
You can also look
Alright.
at your 878 under GPS info.
Good tip, Tom.
That's what I
So-
did on mine.
If you have ham radio, you should always use ham radio.
Yes.
Who needs Google Maps?
Hey, Brad, Dana, I got a question real quick.
Yes.
Sure.
So if you scroll back up to your hotspot frequency. So I
Yes.
picked mine from, I got it from the Michigan 1 DMR page. So I just have the simplex. So I picked one of the 445 addresses. Does it really matter?
So the entire 70 centimeter bandwidth is allocated for data as well. So you wouldn't be going outside of frequency, but best practice would be to use one of those.
Yeah, and then that's what I did. So you have a 443, which is shown under the duplex settings,
433,
or 433, yes.
which was the stock one in there. I never changed that.
I
you-
just, go ahead, Dana.
You can change it to whatever you want. And if you're curious, if you have a simplex or duplex, if it's two antennas on the hotspot, typically it will be a duplex. Single antenna is a simplex. Back to you, James.
Yeah, and so that's why I went through the simplex frequencies, because that's what both of mine are. So I just picked one of the 445 addresses. So
Remember, there
I was
is a
just curious if it-
frequency around Canada that you have to avoid 420 through 430, I think.
Well, we're talking about a very low powered signal, but there is a remote control allocation within the 440 band. It doesn't really matter what they're talking about. Simplex simplex would be radio to radio with 5 watts or 10 watts or 50 watts.
Yeah.
That's what that means. But the allocation, ARRL allocation band plan will show a remote operation frequency suggestion for, to use, I guess. And that's what I picked. But you're talking about a few milliwatts. So you're not going to interfere with anybody. So it really doesn't matter, Jay, I don't think, quite honestly. But the duplex or the simplex they're talking about is radio to radio. Not radio to remote control device, which is your hotspot.
Let me read through a couple comments in the chat. Some people posted, and Dan said he tried WPSD on his MMDVM with problems. Now I know it runs poorly on the Pi 0, and I have a Pi 3 and Pi 4 hotspots. He's going to try again. Herb said, don't use @ or the @ symbol in your password when it's in your password. Make it simple, people. Make it easy on that one. Paul, time to upgrade the Pi 0 version W1.2 to a Pi 0 2 watt or 2W. And if you have registered an NXDN ID, it will auto filled in. And Herb also added WPSD.find modem will tell you what card in the SSH to get for those. I heard on the other night, they said use an industrial strength memory card because they are the top of the batch when they make them.
Yes, you do want to use a good memory card when writing it. That does make for a better longevity of your card. So the right here is your modem configuration. So this is where we're getting into setting up for using your MMDVM board. So you can turn all of these on or off. You can only use one mode at a time, but you can have multiple modes turned on at a time. You just have to switch your hotspot between those. I haven't experimented with that. I don't have anything for any of these other modes, so I can't get into that portion of it at this time. You can also,
Just remember to turn DMR on. I forgot that.
yes, yes, make
And
sure DMR is turned on, and you'll have to go through and apply changes again. Once you
Brad,
apply those,
I
go
was just
ahead.
gonna bring up I already know the answer, but just so you guys say, hey, I don't see TGIF on there. How do you get TGIF to work?
We're getting into
Some-
that. There's some more configuration to get
TGS
into.
mode.
You
It's
just
not a
gotta make
mode,
sure,
network.
yeah, well, make sure DMR, because it's part of DMR.
And then for this, you want to select the appropriate screen type you have and the port that you're using it off of so it knows where to send that information. And you want to select your layout that you have. I selected this because I didn't change my layout, my display yet, and this is what was in the Pi Star for that little screen on the Pi Zero.
Can you
board.
show the drop down on the display type so we can see what the different choices are?
Yes. And there's your different choices. You have different ports depending on where it's coming out of. And you have different layouts you can choose from. So here's where you're starting to get into all your DMR settings. You can turn Brandmeister on. You put your Brandmeister hotspot security key in here to get on the Brandmeister, and you select your Brandmeister server. You flip this switch to enable. Hotspot repeater information. Edit hotspot repeater. And then to use the Brandmeister, you need to put your Brandmeister API key in. You click this, it will take you to get your API key and the BM API key editor. And you can click on that and it will take you into that where you can put your API key in and hit apply changes. And that's
the feature that's not documented in the documentation for WPSD.
Yes, I don't always read documentation. I play around and figure stuff out because I'm used to troubleshooting stuff on the fly with no KBs.
Hey, Brad.
It is not there.
Yeah, go back up to Brandmeister and where it has your Brandmeister Network ESSID, that's your digital ID. What's the drop down behind it? What is that? 0102? What does that do?
Yes. So if you have more than one hotspot, you want to put a number behind each one. That's so they don't interfere with each other. So that's another point. That's another point. Back up here at your frequency. If you have two hotspots on the same frequency, they will talk to each other and they will put you in an infinite loop of transmission that you cannot break because they are talking to each other. The only way to break it is to remove the power from one of the devices. So if you're setting up more than one and they're ever going to be in any proximity to each other and both turned on at the same time, offset these frequencies so on each one so you don't put yourself into a transmission loop.
And you'll get banned from the network you're on temporarily.
Yes, Brandmeister, if you're on a 4-digit state talk group and you do that on Brandmeister, they will talk group ban you and they won't care. You can also get on DMR Plus, free DMR, HB link, and custom network settings. For this one, whatever talk group, you have to use an 8 prefix and make it a 7-digit number with padding. So to give an example of what we are talking about here, if we're talking about 3126 as your talk group number, that would be 8. That's 4 digits. So I have to put 2 3126 to make a 7-digit number. So it would look like that.
So it has to
And
start
then-
with an 8 and you use zeros to fill in. You get a total of 7 digits.
Yes, correct. So that's how you would program your code plug. Or if you're, I know on my radios, I think on a couple others, you can hit the pound key and you can type in a talk group to go to without programming it in. If you're doing it that way or programming your code plug, it has to be typed in like this to get onto the DMR Plus free DMR HB link and custom settings, or you will not get in. And then System X is the same thing. You turn it on. You select your master unit. Same thing with this. You select which place you want to go to. Brandmeister, they do have 3 different US locations. I chose 3102 because of the issues they had in their Chicago servers. And System
the 3
X,
servers, the 3 Brandmeister servers, there's 1 Chicago, 1 in Texas, 1 out in California.
yes. System X is talk group uses the 4 prefix. So instead of if we're using our 3126 example, it would be 4003126. So you're just replacing that 8 with the 4, but it's the same layout.
Excuse me, when we had the chat with Corey from Brandmeister, didn't he recommend that we should be using Chicago because these servers are in a VM configuration? The other
He
ones aren't
did.
VMs?
Yeah, he said basically pick the master server closest to you,
Mhm.
whether
Yeah.
it's Chicago 3104, Texas 3103, and I could be wrong in that one, and the one in California 3102.
Texas is 3102, I think, Dana, and he banned.
33. Texas is 3.
Yeah,
3103.
2 is California. I picked 2 because Texas and Chicago were both down at the same time.
Hmm.
But I am not on Brandmeister enough for me to affect their servers bad enough for me to care about changing to the one closest to me. I am mainly on TGIF.
Hey,
And
hey, Brad, I got a question because I see you got the ESSID on TGIF and the ones above it. Should you do that on
yes.
all of those for the networks you're on?
Yes, you should. Because each one registers your hotspot separately.
Yeah, 3102 is Texas and 3103 is California, FYI.
We're
Oh,
on.
3102
Thanks,
is? Okay.
I'm sure it was different.
And then TGIF, you do the same thing. You do have to have your TGIF security key. And if you need it, they have a link that will take you right into the TGIF network to either register or sign in. If you have an account, you can sign in. From there, you can go to your call sign up in the right corner and click on user security, or it brings it up right here. You can copy and paste that right back into here. They make it super simple to do it. Click on this, and it uses the 5 talk group prefix. So for back to our example here, it's be 5003126. So if it's a 5-digit talk group, such as 5031268, the DMR TechNet channel, that's how you would input it. You'd only use the 10.
Not that difficult once you figure it out.
It really is not. You'll apply those changes, and you can use your parent channels to connect to it. There's actually some advanced features we can get into that are really cool. If you go to advanced, you can go to full editors and RF remote commands. In here, you want to put your call sign right here where it says call sign equals. And depending on what you're using, this will also be false. You want to enable this to true. So replace false with true here, and that will enable this feature. You want to put your call sign in, and if you're on D-Star, when you put in your D-Star information, you can put one of these in, and it will shut down, reboot, or whatever. For DMR, you can reconnect, you can get in, I'm not sure what host files does. Service kill, services restart, so you can
I think it
kill
just
and
clears
restart
and
your
redoes the host
services.
files.
Sorry?
It clears and redoes the host files, so you can go to like PyStar.
Okay.
And Steve uses the reboot quite a bit, if I'm not mistaken, or the shutdown. Is
I
that
use
correct, Steve?
shutdown. I use shutdown, especially when I'm taking it on the road. I have
Yes.
my radio. I have the little green button on the top set. I just push it, and then it will come up with that talk group number, and I just hit the PTT, and it will go through the shutdown process.
Is it a quick PTT or do you got to hold it for several seconds?
I just a quick, or the PTT. It doesn't matter. Just you have to just push it. It doesn't have to be. Your long press is usually not on the PTT. Your long press will be on one of your custom buttons.
Yeah, so
Does that make sense?
as long as you're keying into it. So just quick key it like you would key into a talk group.
Yeah.
And it will come back after a few seconds. Oftentimes say secret not found. And if you watch your screen, it will flip over to offline eventually. And once it says offline, it's typically safe to shut down from there.
Takes within up to 30 seconds or something like that. But it's a
Yeah,
good feature.
30
You don't,
seconds to a minute.
yeah, you don't want to
Skybridge
just
Hack
randomly,
says something about shutdown or something like that.
Yeah,
and you
mine will
don't
say
want to just
shutting down,
unplug power.
and then it will just come up to say offline once nothing's running anymore.
MBB. Pin. Right.
And that's a really good thing to do if you are, like I take mine with me in the car and I shut it down when I get to work and I shut it down when I get home. And once it's shut down, I remove it from power. I don't just kill power. But for each mode, it has its own shutdown commands. Really good to program into your radio in for that purposes. And you'd put those into your code plug as private calls. And you can, like Steve said, program it to a hotkey, or go into a private call or something like that. And then you'd hit apply changes once you put your information in, and that will allow you to do that.
Hey, Brad, why, hold on, I was thinking the appearance. You want to change colors, or when you click on a call sign, it takes you to look that information up. Can you show them how to change that from QRZ to radio ID?
I mean, I don't know why you would want to, but let me see if I can find that one.
Sound like you're talking with a client. Well, I don't know why you would want to do that, but I guess. Sure.
think
Which
it's under
setting
tools.
was?
Tools.
I use
Or the
QRZ all the time. I like
Brad.
QRZ.
Brad, the website's down.
Yes. No.
I forget off the top of my head.
Yeah, I
It-
forget where it's at.
It's under, go to admin, or is it config? One of those for appearances.
Oh no, it's
Yeah.
config. It's config.
Nah, it's not this one. Go back to admin. Should be right at the top. No, it isn't. I don't remember off the top of my head. By the way, there's also where you do the updates if you want to manually update WPSD.
To manually update, it's up in your upper right-hand corner and just click it.
Yeah. I know it's not here.
I think it's there.
There's so many features you have with this that sometimes it gets kind of confusing. Maybe it's advanced.
All that stuff is in the regular Pi-Star version of an MMDVM device. Remote, radio ID versus QRZ. Those are all in their configuration. So there's not additional features that I've seen. Am I wrong?
Yeah, I didn't know you could change it to radio ID.
Yeah. Stand by. Let me get over to mine.
Okay. So while they're looking at that, let's get to the real meat and potatoes of this after your setup, your dashboard. It's what's really nice with your dashboard is you can hide chunks. So that gets rid of a lot of people off my dashboard right away. You can get the caller details. Turn that off. You see it just shows your call sign talk group like it does on the normal Pi-Star. With caller details turned on, it takes a second for it to switch. You get their name, location, and all of that. You get the talk group names. Either get the talk group, turn this on. You'll get the talk group names listed with the talk group. And these are all parts of the updates they give out on a regular basis, is updating these databases so this information can be displayed. When you click on a call sign, it opens up their QRZ page right away, which is nice. Instead of the radio ID page.
Hey, Brad, go to configuration, then on the top bar, hit appearance. That's where you change it. Yeah,
Okay.
that's where you can change where it looks it up.
So yeah, you can change it to radio ID like it does on Pi-Star, but I mean, it's more, to me, it's more practical to QRZ because you get their QRZ page and get where most people go look you up anyway, right away.
Okay.
So that's a lot more convenient. You can change the colors of this.
Yeah.
So another nice thing with the dashboard is this live caller page. So on the live caller page, you get a lot more information, but you only see the one person that's talking. So if I were to key up real quick into that talk group, it should pop up with my information. Name, location, the source it came from, time slot, talk group,
But that was a
duration.
chunk, Brad. That was a chunk. I thought it didn't show chunks.
It doesn't show chunks on the dashboard portion. On the live caller page, it will. So your live caller page will show chunks.
That's cool there. I like that.
Now, another feature, the bit error rate. I forget where I read it. It takes about 10 seconds or so to calculate that bit error rate, and that's 10 seconds of your transmission. So if you're working with bit error rates, you need to transmit for at least 10 seconds or more before it will accurately calculate that, and before you want to make any adjustments. In fact, they point you to the Pi-star bit error rate adjustments, how to do it from there. So it's not in the manual.
So, and that is, there is a link right down there. Let me go back in there to show that, get that better again. Right here, there's a little link that says main dashboard. Click on that, and that will take you back to your
Okay.
main dashboard page. A couple things you do want to do. Very good idea. Oh, I'll go back to the dashboard. And you can see Steve popped up. And N8TJ will be the last live caller now, if we go back to the live caller page. So this will be whoever the last one was.
Hey, Brad, on the dashboard, when you get back there, show the three toggles you've got there: display talk group names, caller details, hide chunks.
I did. I went over those already.
Just want to make sure.
Yes, I did go over those. You can change this duration here. So it's always good practice to have a backup of your configuration. They make it simple here. You go into here, go backup restore right here. Click on that. It'll take you to this. You can download your config or you can restore it. And you have to choose, once you download it, you can then choose your file locations to restore it from. Remember where you download those from so you can restore it. So what's nice is if you download it and then you have to reinstall, it will reload your configuration onto a fresh image without you having to go through and redo everything again. WPSD updates. If you click on this, it will check itself for updates. It's probably not going to have an update for me because it's not flashing up here, but this is how you can manually check for updates. And we have to wait for it to do its thing.
Alan liked your comment about manuals. And Paul
Power.
said Chip didn't allow adding labels to the WPSD header line. And also, that's why you get high bit error rates on short transmissions.
So any questions over anything we went over so far?
I don't
None?
see any,
Okay.
nothing in chat.
All right. So that is
Great
still
job,
writing.
guys. Great job.
So one last thing, when this is done writing to your disk, you do want to drop that, just copy and paste into the main file, like open up that drive and just drop that configuration file we downloaded earlier onto that flash drive. It doesn't go in any folders, just drop it on there as it's writing itself. It looks through the entire folder, it looks through the entire directory for it, and it will find it off of the main folder, and that's the best place to put it, is just on the drive itself. And it will pick it up and automatically connect to your Wi-Fi on its reboot processes. And unfortunately, I can't show that step because it's still writing.
Brad, after
Yes.
you do an update, I always believed in doing another backup right away because it does label them differently, and you know you got your backup.
So this isn't backing up the software, it's backing up the configuration file. So
Right,
it's
I'm saying you back up your config file right after it does its update. And then you don't have to go through an update again if you have a crash or anything.
You can. You'll be updating daily
Well,
because that's how often WPSD gets updated is
I
almost daily.
don't believe that configuration file changes that much. If it might change that puts you back, but what you're restoring is once you build your image again, you put your configuration file back into there and restore from there. And that's not affecting the software.
Yeah. And when you re-download it and you download it off their website, you're downloading the latest image of it anyway. So you're always downloading the most up-to-date version no matter where you get it from. If it's you and flash it over and then install it, it's going to ask you to update right away. Or if you get it off of the website, it's going to give you the most up-to-date version.
Hey, Tom, I have a comment for you in that Brad, Rick, and myself were chatting. One thing we like with the WPSD, we're not beta testers, where with the new versions of PyStar, they put them out there and they want you guys or whoever's doing it to find the bugs, the issues, the problems. And I'm looking at their Telegram group. There's a lot of issues, it seems like. Doesn't work on here. I went back to the an older version that seemed to work fine. Where Chip told us when I talked to him last year, hey, they check it before it goes out, and they're constantly improving it with those daily tweaks.
How do I know what version of PyStar, like Pi 0? How do I know that? I mean, I look right now, I see PyStar 4.1.8, but that's not what you got.
No, 4.2 and 4.21 is the latest versions of PyStar.
So you're saying for 4.1.8, I'm not quite updated.
No, you are, but you're not. 4.21, which is the current version, or 4.2, depending on which system you're running for your board. It's use it at your own risk. It may not work for you. And if it doesn't, report your issues so they can fix them in the next update.
I never update immediately anything ever. Because then I'll let everybody else fix it, and then I'll do it.
And Herb posted in the chat, he said 4.18 is stable, 4.2 and 4.3 are beta versions.
I've never had a problem with anything.
They learned all that from Windows. You're the beta tester.
I was a Windows Server administrator. That's why I got that disease where I can't update right away. I'm inoculated from it.
With my experience with WPSD and their automatic updates, for I don't know what, 4 or 5 months I've been running it, I have not had a problem. It's never caused a problem to me. Could it cause a problem? Yep, very well. But I heard Chip on Ham Radio 2.0 YouTube channel. They had him Chip on there Saturday, and he said I think he has 10 or 12 Raspberry Pi 2Ws that he uses for testing. So he's using a lot of different machines for testing, and like Dana said, I believe that he tests this stuff before it goes out every day. So, and there got to be just incremental changes. He's not doing major stuff at one time. So,
no, like the biggest changes they're doing on a daily basis is radio ID updates, because there's between 75 to 100 radio IDs issued every day. So a lot of it's like your radio ID updates, your talk group updates, stuff like that they get, so you get this information on your dashboard. That's the biggest parts of those updates.
Svam, to answer your question, in Telegram, it's Pi-star support for the PyStar.
If you're talking about the WPSD, it's Whiskey 0 CHP dot radio and slash WPSD.
Yeah, in Telegram, you can just go to the search bar at the top left, type in what you're looking for.
How many of you have gotten the Brandmeister API code and put in your hotspot?
I haven't.
Not I.
I have.
If
I
you
got-
don't
I
use
got an API
Brandmeister
key.
that much, but
Not I.
that's one of those things. If you want either PyStar or or WPSD to make changes like dropping you from a static talk group or whatever to do anything at Brandmeister that you wouldn't do there, you need to
Yeah.
put that API key in PyStar or WPSD to allow that to work. So that's why where Brad went through earlier and went into those advanced editors, and there's a DMR, a Brandmeister or a DMR, I forget what it was now.
Management.
I'll bring it back up real quick.
Yeah, it was in the advanced.
Config.
It's in the
Yeah, just go-
advanced.
no, you're just in it.
Oh, okay,
Oh,
You're
you
going
mean to
that
put
way.
your key? Yeah, you put
Yeah.
your key in there.
right.
Yep.
You go there, but it's in unadvanced. There's the editors and forget which one it is. Your Brandmeister API key. You just paste it in there, and you can't really do it multiple. Well, you can do it multiple times, but it eliminates the old one every time you do.
If you go this way, full editors, DMR.
And then Brandmeister API
Yeah,
key. There
Brandmeister
you
API key.
But while you're setting it up, you can put it in there at the same time as your configuration because you can get to it right here,
Yeah, I
which
blew
is
by
why
that.
I was showing this way.
Sorry, yeah, I blew by that and had to go back and do it the other way.
Yeah, I do tech support for a living. I have a method to my madness. Show the easiest way first.
In Discord, that's where the WPSD project is. That's the one that Chip W0CHP is constantly monitoring and asking and answering questions on there.
Can you go
And-
back to there you go, go back to the documentation. I forget what page it's on. They've got all the guys on the team that actually wrote this thing. Oh, geez, where'd it go? I
There's
wanted
a
to show that to you too. Chip's not the only guy that works on this.
Yeah, he had the guy in the top
No, I
left-hand
think it's
corner.
Dale. Dale works on it too.
I got a kick. We were talking about PyStar, and the guy that basically wrote the code for it is Andy Taylor. And we were chatting
Oh,
earlier.
wow,
That's
that's
the
cool.
Andy Griffith show.
Yeah.
Sheriff Taylor. Hey, Ange.
Documents.
It's on 884 is the section. It's on page 31.
On which document?
On that document you're on. 8.4. Where'd it go?
Keep scrolling down.
It's core development team. Chip is on there, and it's Jonathan G4 KLX, Simon M7 DHQ, Steve KC1 AWV,
Credits.
Jim K6 JWN, Shane M0 VUB. The frequent contributors are Leo AA0NT, Jim KI6ZUM.
Hey, Brad,
and
stay on that page for just a
Rod
minute.
E1MSZ.
At the very bottom, people say, what does WPSD stand for? And he kind of he explains it. Kind of a funny tongue-in-cheek thing. And you can see the WPSD plausibly stands for divergence, but it did stand for W0CHP PyStar dashboard.
And if you really feel like modifying this thing or adding your own features into it, you can go out to GitHub and get a copy of the code and make your updates. But just be cognizant of it will rewrite those updates every night. So if you really want to do on your fork, you start a new fork and develop from there.
And Chip says, don't ask for features. If you want it, build it, add it,
Programming.
share the code
Build
with us. Hey guys, I'm looking at the clock. It's 9:00, just about 9:06. Any other questions or comments anyone in the audience has for Brad or for Rick tonight on WPSD?
Thank you, Brad and
Thank you,
Rick.
guys. Yeah, it was a
Thank-
great job. Learned a lot.
Thank you, guys.
Cool.
Just give it a try.
job,
It's
Brad.
it's
Good
a lot
job.
of fun.
It is a lot of fun. I've got them on all three of my hotspots, but
Your next
thank you,
challenge, if
gentlemen.
you want to accept it, is actually write a additional feature for WPSD.
We'll leave that to you, Steve. So anyway, next month, let's see, where's our calendar here? Garrett Dow of Repeater Book on Tuesday, April 16th, 8 o'clock Eastern time. That should be fun. We had him on a couple weeks ago on the TechNet, but he's going to go over Repeater Book and all the new features and plans he's got planned for it. It comes in pretty handy to find out repeaters, frequencies, and all kinds of stuff about them.
Have
And
a
it's
great
basically the
idea for
worldwide guide.
something to write for WPSD is to change the voice so that when it comes through and it says secret net found, it's Darth Vader.
And that's if you can afford anything after taxes.
Yeah.
All right, hold on. Let me stop the recording.